Hey there folks, Zachary Smith, owner of Smith's Pest Management. Looking at trees again. This is a really hot topic this time of year. Right behind me, these are some London plane trees, also called sycamore, and they're dying of drought stress, right? And right here, I'm underneath a beautiful, shady live oak tree. Not looking too bad at all. Now, the live oak may be very stressed out. Oaks have this ability to kind of go to sleep when things get really bad. So you can't even tell, but this tree is very dormant and hardly going through any visible signs of life other than it stayed green. But the sycamores don't have that ability. Down the alley here, those are crepe myrtles, and they're very drought tolerant as well, and they're hunkering down and hoping for water. We have some other trees over here that are the opposite of drought tolerant. They're water lovers. They're called riparian species. They live along creek beds. They live in river corridors, and they are called alder trees, and they are dead. This is the time of year, or I should say, during times of drought, alder trees are always dying. Rare to see sycamores dying. They're pretty easy to keep alive. Oaks, no. But what you don't see with oaks in the leaves, you may see in the trunk. I'm not saying that bleeding black ooze from trunks is dying. I'm saying that that's a common sign of a common oak disease. Could very well be Phytophthora cinnamomi, not likely Phytophthora amorum. Could be the borehole of a beetle and some what we call alcoholic flux or wetwood. But anyway, the point is that a healthy tree has a good way of defending itself against invasive pathogens, and a very drought-stressed tree, while it may still be very green, does not have all of its faculties in order for defending itself in the case of drought. So every tree, drought-loving, water-loving, they all stress when they finally reach that point where they're not getting enough water to thrive, or even hang on, I should say. So, how do you fix this problem? Supplemental water. You could have saved, well, if you were insistent upon it, you could have saved these alders. And if you're insistent upon it, you can bring back these sycamores or London plane trees. But it takes irrigation, and it takes careful irrigation, infrequent, like once a month, deep soaking, like all the ground around them down at least 8 to 10 inches would be good. Do that once a month, you'll get through the drought. You won't use as much water as you would think. You're surely going to use a lot less water than just trying to irrigate the whole landscape with the sprinkler system. You might want to just hand water. Bring out a big water truck and hand water your important trees during these water restriction drought times. Now at Smith's, we do take care of this sort of thing. We can hand water. We do have the capacity to come out with a lot of water and inject it right into the soil, or use a fire hose nozzle and soak the earth and get a good saturation once a month. Ought to get you through. Now with certain trees, you can't bring them back. The oaks, I don't really recommend watering the oaks except for just once a month. Any time of year, don't water your oaks too much. They're not in love with getting moist roots in the warm soil. That's kind of a recipe for disaster for some oak trees. So over here we have some what are called Calorie Pears, Pyrus caloriana, Bradford, Chanticleer. There's a bunch of species. They're really looking bad right now. Here's a good one. Oh boy, really sick. They have no irrigation on here. That's fine, water restrictions, but there's nothing being done to save them. I have a feeling that this landscape is just going to be torn out and redone. I feel like that this isn't any sense of negligence. This is the plan for this landscape to be renovated. But many years were invested in these trees, and so it is sometimes worth it to say, hey, if the future landscape is going to need trees, why not save the trees we've got? At Smith's, we deal with these kinds of disease issues. Drought stress is a disease. Pests are part of disease. If you're thinking pest management, you should be thinking bugs, rodents, fungi that are attacking your plants, bacteria, insects, all these things. Your plants, your property value, your home. It's all one system. It's all part of your neighborhood aesthetic. Beautiful home, beautiful trees, beautiful landscaping. But we want to use a responsible amount of water and not have to dump a lot of pesticide and fertilizer to solve our issues. So this is a little bit of a disjointed tape or recording here, but I thought, I'm driving by, I'm seeing this issue everywhere. If you want to save your trees because they're worth tens of thousands of dollars, there's so many years invested. To get here again, you have to trade time. See, what's a plant worth? Well, not the few $100 at the nursery. It's the years. What would you trade 10 years for? How much money would you trade 10 years for? I'm not talking about going back in time. If you were going to throw 10 years at a problem, would you want $100? How about $1 million? Point is, it's hard to put a value on trees except for when they're dead and you plant little baby trees. I'm in the shade of this tree. It's hotter than heck out here, late July. I enjoy the shade of this tree. That does not come easy. This tree had to grow in a tough environment for many years to provide enough shade to be of use. It was the whole purpose of trees in the landscape is to soften the hard aesthetic of the pavement and bring shade. Cools the urban heat island, right? We live in the urban environment. It's an urban heat island. The asphalt absorbs heat all day long. The buildings, the concrete absorbs heat all day long. And it radiates heat all night long. And the ambient temperature in the city is higher everywhere. Talk about climate change and global warming. Cities have already been warm forever. The trees can soften that. They also pay the price. You got to take care of the dirt, folks. The soil that these trees are growing in, moisture, nutrition, oxygen, the soil structure, whether it's not too compacted or it's got good transfer of air and water. This is important because when you've got an urban heat island, when you've got harsh growing conditions, when you've got water restrictions, the trees are totally dependent. Their life support system is what's in the soil. They make energy from the sun, but that is secondary to keeping them alive. They got to be alive to make the energy. To be alive, they have to have healthy roots, air, oxygen. I don't think people really understand how much oxygen trees breathe. There's a common belief that trees take in carbon dioxide and exhale or expel oxygen. It's absolutely true. But every single living cell in this tree, from the root tips to the shoot tips, is respiring oxygen respiration. This is basic stuff that animals and plants share. All living things. Living is an oxidative reaction. We inhale oxygen. We exhale carbon dioxide. The trees happen to be also making oxygen through the process of photosynthesis, but they don't make oxygen at night. Their roots don't make oxygen, but the roots do breathe oxygen. So when you have a compacted soil full of water, mud, bog, or just rock hard compaction, and you do not nurture these roots, the top will suffer. The top's just up there. It's the factory. It's making sugar. It's feeding the rest of the tree with that sugar. The tree is made of wood. Wood is sugar. Did you know that? This is a fun fact. Anything that ends in ose is a sugar. Glucose, fructose, cellulose. Trees are made of sugar. All plants are made of sugar. They use the minerals and the moisture from the soil, plus the photosynthate, the sugar from the leaves, to feed themselves and add height, girth, wood, that's storage. So, that's a fun fact for today. There's a lot going on. Why am I so adamant about trees? Well, I mentioned the urban heat island, I mentioned the shade, I mentioned that on a hot as heck day, it's nice to sit under these things. I mentioned that we put a huge amount of time in our life to getting them to be this size, to only lose them in a drought with a crummy tree management plan. And we also know that people just have no idea how these things work. So you turn on the sprinkler system and you throw down the general purpose fertilizer, and magically most trees just somehow make it. But when we're at that cutting edge, or that fine line between life and death, it isn't just some sprinkler water and some general purpose fertilizer. We need to actually get scientific. I'm a horticulturist. I studied horticultural science. I learned all about trees, tree diseases, landscape diseases. I also learned about rodents and ants and spiders and fungi and things that get in your home. They eat your house, they eat your food, they bite you, and they suck your blood. It's all the same thing, folks. All part of the living system. When we have things out of balance, the nasty, nasty stuff gets way out of whack. Ants all over the place. Ants are tough as nails. They're opportunistic. Rats, same thing. They're not going down. They're going to take you with them. They're going to go right through the walls of your house to get at your food and water. And the gophers and the ground squirrels, the voles, same thing. But they're going to go into your landscape and they're going to eat the roots, and they're going to hurt your trees, and they're going to hurt your lawn. You don't need a lawn to survive, but I think you'd be really, really remiss to say you don't need trees to survive. And I'm not talking about just producing oxygen. I'm talking about shade, cool. The difference between getting underneath a shady tree, if its ambient temperature is 100 degrees, that's ambient temperature measured in the shade. How hot's it in the sun? Well, the car, I remember last drought and heat wave, 2020, 2021, that's where we are now, so 2020, 2019. We were reading 115 to 125 in the Bay Area on the dashboard. That's the temperature out on the asphalt. That's the urban heat island. That's that nasty radiant temperature. That's what you feel when you're not standing under a tree. So if we're having a heat wave and they say it's 95 degrees, that's 95 degrees under a tree. Out in the sun, it's 100, it's 105, it's 110. They don't tell you the temperature on the news as if you're standing out in the sun. They tell you in the shade. All ambient temperature measurements are taken in the shade. Blowing your mind up today, folks. Blowing your minds up. So, what else do you want to know? I feel like I know everything today. I'm a wise guy. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching, it's the rantings of a madman. The heat must have got to my brains. Just out and about doing my thing. Looking for gophers, ground squirrels. People call me up on a Sunday. I come out and help them out. Got a gopher tearing up your lawn? I came out, took care of it. I work Sundays. Got to make ends meet. It's the Bay Area. I think a gopher guy's rich. Give me a call if you have any questions about trees, landscape, irrigation, household pests, anything. Call me. Say hi. Phone number is on the website, smithspestmanagement.com. Your pest problems stop here, folks. Thank you much.